All right, and welcome back to Logan Simmons Photography. And today I actually want to talk about film, and specifically Kodak Tri-X film. They just celebrated a big anniversary. It's been around since the 1950s. And you know what it's about, and let's compare it to digital as well, and some of the disadvantages and advantages that both mediums offer. So, but before we do that, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can see more great stuff like this. We talk about photo expeditions, reviews of products, what have you. It's a lot of fun. I think you'll enjoy it a lot. Let's go ahead and get into the photos. I've got some here on my phone, so that's what I'm looking at occasionally. And I want to start with this first one here. It is actually, this is, again, Kodak Tri-X. I actually had a little bit of a sepia tone. These are scans from a photo lab, have everything developed there and so forth. So, you know, I think the composition is very nice, but I want to point out a few things that's a little bit different here from digital. First off, probably those highlights there wouldn't be quite as blown out as much if we were looking at a digital file. But, you know, that's just par for the course. Film does not have the same dynamic range that digital does. But one really unique thing about Tri-X film, if you look in the midtones there, it's not just this kind of flat gray thing. There's a lot of complexity, if that's a word, thrown in there that really makes some interest and some intrigue there in the image. Something you don't really get with digital. And of course, you know, obviously there's grain here. This is a 400 speed film, and I shot it at 400 for this case. So it is grainy, but I think it adds a nice aesthetic there. So really cool. Now this next one, I think it has a little bit of a sepia tone in it as well. This is where it was actually exposed for the highlights, and you get this beautiful creamy look to it. I don't think it's just the sepia tone that was added. It creates this, you know, digital, it has a lot of detail, but at the same time it doesn't. And this may be because of the chemistry and what have you there, and it really added a nice glow there to the image that digital can kind of lack, because digital is all about being perfect, to be honest with you, at least when it's shot in the camera before you edit it. And film, it never really could be perfect. There were certain technical limitations and so forth. So, you know, an advantage or a disadvantage, but to me it is an advantage, I think, a lot. Let's go ahead and move down as well. This is kind of a super artistic-y black and white shot, which really lends itself to the film. And again, you get that glow, the little, what you're seeing around the image there. Those are actually leaves. I'm kind of shooting through leaves and making a little bit of a window for the water and rocks below. And it really looks like it's shimmering. Again, something you do not get with digital very often. So now these next ones, I actually have a digital comparison to show you, so I can actually not just talk about it. This horizontal one here of this little stream, I want to point you out to those midtones there. Again, I think we did add a sepia tone to this one after the fact, after the scan. But again, there's such complexity there that's in the midtones. Now you could argue maybe that's just some of the chemistry or the chemicals or the little granules there of film, the grain, but I think it really adds something to the image. In fact, we'll take a look at, well, let me show you this vertical film one as well. This is without a sepia tone. I like this composition probably a little bit better, but again, you get that glow. Again, highlights are probably a little bit blown out, which, you know, we didn't shoot with any graduated filters or anything like that in front of the lens, but create this nice effect. Now, if you look at that digital version, this is actually shot on an iPhone, but it was shot in RAW. You know, you don't, it's a much flatter image. Of course, I did try and, you know, bring up the contrast a little bit, but it tries to show so much, again, make that perfect image. Of course, this is in color, but I still think some of the comparison is worthwhile. It just doesn't have the same magic that it looks like in black and white. In fact, I think the black and white film really makes this image. I don't think it would necessarily be the same if we just converted the digital color image into black and white in the computer. I don't think it would work out the same way. So let me kind of scooch over here and we'll take a look at some more things. I love this shot of this little tiny waterfall in the stream with the brush there surrounding it. You get that beautiful, again, those midtones. That's the real thing about Tri-X. You get this beautiful midtones. It is contrasting at the same time, but you still have midtones. It's kind of a complicated thing. A lot of people say Tri-X is kind of this weird, artistic, very unique look, and I would agree with that. And that's why it's been around for so long. It hasn't been replaced or completely upgraded and changed. Although I think they did a slight reformulation maybe in the mid-2000s or so. But again, just those beautiful midtones popping out. You get that little shimmer there off the water that, again, is so characteristic of Tri-X there. Now these, I love these little bamboo shots because of the, I like the composition, but I love how the afternoon light was playing against there, the bamboo, and there's actually a wall behind there that you can't really see because it's underexposed back there anyway. But it just, the little glow and flicker is such a nice look to it there. I was trying to think what else I can show. I've got so many of these, and a lot of us are the same characteristics. Let me show you this particular one here with the flower. And this is such high contrast, but I think it really works well in this particular image. Now you can barely, and if you look at it just for a second, you might not even see the flower there, but it's surrounded by the glow there. And again, with those, you do see a little bit of the midtones there and the shadows and the flower itself. And this is something, if you shot it on digital, would just be this muddy kind of image because digital is trying to show you everything. So that's really, that's something special there. Now, I'll show you this one here. We have the trees there in the background. This is virtually all mid-tone. So we're really seeing the beauty of that Tri-X come out. This is almost like a normal looking black and white image. And I guess because of the way the light was that day, that's what we got with the film. We do have a little bit of shimmer there off the leaves. But again, really showing those mid-tones really well. Now this one here with the road kind of going off into the light there, this was actually slightly underexposed. I didn't have a tripod with me. The sun was starting to come down and I still wanted to take the shot though. So I had to slightly underexpose as to not get a super shaky image, drag out the shutter too long. But it's even interesting when you underexpose Tri-X and you bring it up, you still get that amount of beauty there that, digital, it's often just a little bit of, it's kind of this grainy, of course, depending on how much you've underexposed it, but it's not this beautiful thing. I think probably the technical negativity of the underexposure, it's actually what makes this image very beautiful. And I'll show you a digital image that was probably taken a week or two before of this same area, roughly around the same time or so. So much more detail in there. But again, I'm not saying it's a better image. I think the film and the little bit of imperfections there really bring this out really well. Let me show you, we got a few more here and we'll kind of wrap it up. I love this one with you're walking down a little path there's the railing, and then in the background you do have some of the limitations of the film there with it being a little blown out highlights there. There's only so much information. But if you look at that in the lower left-hand corner, that little bush right there or the leaves, again, there's beautiful creamy gray midtones there that so characteristic of Tri-X, I think. And I'll show you one last one. And this one, you could argue was actually exposed there for the leaves there in the foreground. But I did in Photoshop decide to bring up the background, the shadows there up a little bit. And when I brought it up, again, of course, we're dealing with a film scan, so we're not dealing with the full power of the film. But even so, you just see that beautiful creaminess back there. I almost like kind of the flat look when you bring up the shadows there. I think we did that as sepia tone, but it's such a beautiful look that, if you screw it up on digital, yes, there's a lot of latitude in digital, but if you do it too much, you get this kind of ugly look. So, film is not perfect. Tri-X is not perfect, but that's not the point. And I really think that's why you want to shoot film. Now it is, it can be quite expensive in comparison to digital, but it does have a lot of benefits, especially artistically. And whether or not it's perfect or not, to me, I like the imperfection. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was shooting like a lot of sports teams in high school and stuff like that, I had a print printed at my local lab of the portrait of the team, and he gave me two things, and he said, here's the one that you wanted done in your way with the corrections you sent, and here's what I think. And my print was nice and warm, and it had a lot of red tones, oranges, things like that. Actually had color in people's faces, not too much, at least that's what I thought. He presented me with what he called the technically correct photograph, and it was this kind of green, really mellow looking picture, but he said, this is what's technically correct. versus what you're printing. And I told him, no, we're going to print what I want. And that is the warm image with the red tones and the oranges in that case, because that's what you want to remember. That's the, the Kodak moment almost. It's never a perfect reproduction of what you had, but it's almost like it's a better reproduction. And I think that's what Tri-X really does, is give you that better reproduction in a way of what you saw. Photography for me is not a copy machine. And that's the way I look at it. So hope you enjoy a little talk on Kodak Tri-X, kind of celebrating that film and comparing a little bit to digital. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Is film old, outdated, too expensive, or do you like the aesthetic as well? Let me know, and make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I appreciate you watching. You have a good one. Bye-bye.